So let's move on to the French door. Now I've fitted this one. This is going to be the outside, and I'm making it an outward opening door. If it was the other way around, you could make it an inward opening door, so that's up to you. I'm going for the larger balcony option. So I have room on this balcony to open the door outwards. If you were going for the Juliet balcony, which is you would just cut these and you don't have to build that, you would have it inwards opening, so you could just literally glue that across there and then it would open inwards into the room. The only reason, or the only thing to think about if it opens inwards, is the furniture that you've got in there. So I wanted the maximum amount of furniture in this room, because it's going to be a bedroom. So I've made my French doors open outwards. And the thing that determines that is the way that you put the hinge on. You want to make sure that it opens all the way back. And when we give you in the French door window frame layer, you'll see two frames, well you'll see three. Two of them are exactly the same, and one of them is slightly deeper all the way around, and that, I don't know if you can see there because it's all black, it slightly overlaps the door, the space for the door, the cutout, and that's so that when this window, or French window, it sort of rests on that sticking out layer there, and it doesn't open all the way through. It stops it. It's like a door jamb, stops it opening the other way. So what you need to do is sort of play around when you've built your door and think, if I want them to open, say, outwards, make sure that you put your thicker frame on first, and then you go, okay, this is the inside, it's got the thicker frame on, my door won't open inwards. And then you can think, okay, now I know I'm building this to open outwards. So it's worth putting the door jamb thing on first. So that's one thing to think about. Also, what depth balcony you want, whether you want the full-on one or whether you want just the Juliet balcony over the front. And then we'll move on to the actual French door. So there's quite a few pieces here. There's two, I would call these blank frames. And then there's some with some thicker crossbars. Let's get those all so you can see them on camera. And there's also some thinner crossbars like that. Now, and then you'd have your piece of perspex, which is the glass. So it's quite simple. Just kind of lay it out like this, and it's the thin one, the thin crossbar goes on top of the thick crossbar, and that's to give you a nice, I'll get it lined up, sort of, can you see that? Faux beveled edge. I'll put a close-up photo of that, that's probably better. So the thin crossbar goes on top of the thick, and they both go on top of the plain sort of frame. So you've got thin, then thick, then plain, and that creates a recess for the perspex to sit in. And then you have those on top. I'm trying to get a good light reflection there, like that. And you do the exact same on this side. The thin goes on top of the thick with the plain frame underneath, and then they would sandwich with the plain frame there to hold that glass like that. And you would glue it together like that, so you've got like a nice scale thickness door that looks good from both angles. The one thing before you glue them like this, so make sure you dry fit them like this first, is to think that, I'll take the perspex out for now, how thick the door is compared to your wall, and we know this is 2mm chipboard, and it's going to need to be hinged, and I put my hinge in between my layers here. So if I show you that hinge close up there, you can see that it's actually glued in between the layers to hide it. So I've got a big stash of these hinges. They're just off Amazon. They're not expensive, and I think opened out they are just 15mm wide and 18mm high, so they're 15 by 18. And again, play around with it. I've got mine with the barrel sort of on the top surface, so that if you imagine when you go like that, it opens all the way back. So let me show you when the barrel's up, and if this door was on this side, it opens all the way back. If you had it the other way up, it gets to there and stops, and then your door wouldn't go any further than that. That might work for you, but I liked mine to open all the way out, so I've got my barrel on the top, and you know that it's going to stick on the top here, so you need to be at the same level in your door as this thickness. So I think in practice it went between the top two, so I had the thin, then the thick crossbars, then I had my hinge, and then it went on to the plain frame that held the glass. But do have a play around with that, because yours might be slightly more or slightly less. You might want to come up or down a layer, and you just want to be careful not to get too big a hinge, so that when you glue it in, you don't actually see it on the inside of those of that frame there. So that's how we did that, and for this one I felt it was easier to glue the hinges. I'll do that. So I glued my thin frame onto my thick one and then turned it over, and I glued mine so that the middle of this crossbar was in the middle of the hinge, if you know what I mean, there like that. So glue them like that. Make sure you've got the hinge the right way up, and then put that one on top like that. And you can notch out this one very simply. I just marked it with a pencil and just hand cut a gap there for that hinge to sit in this plain frame, and so that then when the next frame goes on top, you haven't got any unsightly bumps. So that was the process. So it's thin crossbar and then thicker crossbar, put my hinges on, cut out just on that side and put the sort of open frame on, and then I've glued my mirror side there, and then all we need to do is we put the perspex in there and then glue that on there, and then I pressed it so it was really sturdy, and it is surprisingly sturdy just for craft board. Okay, so I've glued and pressed the door. So you can see there that that's the wrong way because the barrels are down and not up, and it wouldn't open all the way for me. It stops there. So flip it over, and it just kind of naturally falls into place there. You need a bit of a gap also between these two doors. If they're too tight, they sort of, well, they might hold each other shut, but really you want a little bit of a gap so that you could move them in and out, and then you have the natural gap here on this side, and then you want to make sure they're in alignment at the top and the bottom. It's quite easy on a mat like this, so you could line up the bottom of the wall on a line and then see exactly where those fit there, and then you could just hold those in place and check that it opens and shuts freely. So I'm happy with that there. And then it's simply a case of hold that so that you've got it exactly where you want it, and then you flip these over, and I just use super glue for this. Don't use too much, it's a fine line. You don't want it to squidge out and fill in the hinge and stop the hinge working. I keep my fingers out of the way, I'll just use this tool, flick it over and let it sit, and then do the same with this one. Oops, got some super glue on that. There we go. And you just need a very light touch, and then use this to press them down. And it grabs quite quickly. A little bit of super glue on my glass there, which is a pain. And then that will open like that. So we have two doors. This one's a little bit stiffer there, but they work and they don't fall through. So I can now go ahead, put I need to cut actually this, where I've cut the hinge sort of notch out there for the hinges, I need to do it on this side. But just make sure the bottom is lined up with the bottom, and you know the top will fall into place. And then get your pencil. And I kind of sort of take out just a little bit from each between the two notches. You can always cut more. So I'd say err on the side of caution. And check it before you glue it, that all looks good. So I'll glue that in place. And if you've watched any of my videos before, you'll know that I've got a big granite slab off to the right here, just a kitchen worktop saver, and I press everything under there when I dry them, while they dry, sorry, and it really makes, I think, a good difference, or has a really beneficial effect on the strength of the layers and the neatness and the consistency. So that then looks good. And you can see this black here. It's just where I painted over those edges again so they don't show up. Check the doors open fine, and they do. So I'll put my second layer over. And I think I'm going to notch out another little bit there. Also, you'll have noticed on my side walls, I've already decorated those, again because it's easier. This is just a sheet of craft board, and I've used the debossing tool to deboss a faux shiplap effect, and it's so easy to just decorate the side like that. So I did that on that. This one I didn't do yet because I wanted to have this sort of more contrasting so you could see it fitting, but it's up to you what order you do this. You can see here I've cut out that there to go over the hinges. So you could do it that way round, or you could fit the frame and then fit this up to it. It's completely up to you whether you want a deeper frame or whether you want this nearer the top. So that's up to you, it doesn't really make any difference. So I could notch it out there because it's pushing it over slightly, and then I'll put this one on top. So that's how I'll finish that. And again on the inside we've got the wider sort of piece of craft board there as the doorstop, so you might just want to cut another frame and layer that up so that you have a little bit of detail there. Can you see that there? Just some frame detail. So that's that. And then the balcony is simply, I've done 3 layers of craft board. I think that's quite sturdy enough. That fits onto this base, and then the sides fit up to it. So they glue slightly on the inside edge of the front, and then put that on top, and it's just designed so that, can you see there's a slight, I don't know if I can get that on camera, a slight bevel on the inside here, and you'll notice that what I did was I put this on my workbench, turned this upside down, and you can just see when you've got an equidistant gap all the way along there to glue that onto. Again, that's nice and sturdy, and I will paint this probably all black as well.